covering the latest in entertainment and beyond since 2011. You're listening to the RCWR Show. And now your host, as featured on Wrestling Inc. and TNA Insider, Lee Sanders.
If you're a comic book character, then this is definitely your favorite time of the year as some of your beloved heroes and villains take to the big screen. Of course, I'm talking about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, as The Amazing Spider-Man 2 made its debut this opening weekend, and I need to let you guys know it's off to a very damn good strong start. How good of a strong start? Try an impressive $92 million this opening weekend of May 3rd, 2014. Now, this is the fifth go round that Sony has distributed a Spider-Man flick in part with Marvel Studios, and it got a little bit of an early jump on Thursday as it pulled in, get this, $8.7 million for its late night showings. All right. Now, if you're kind of keeping track, that's a little bit down from how Captain America did. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, just down by about 15%, but hey, we're not going to hold that against Spidey, okay? Now, so far, going from Friday to Saturday, it looks like it's been pulling in about anywhere from just about over 30 million, almost close to 40 million. So, yeah, it's definitely off to a pretty good start. Can't wait to see how the numbers continue to do. It just might surpass Captain America Winter Soldier, but we'll see what happens. Of course, I'm not alone to talk about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I got the beautiful and the lovely, my partner in crime, my best friend. I love her to death, the one and only Tammy. And Tammy, I definitely want to pick your brain and talk about this movie because we both at one point had saw the first Amazing Spider-Man, and I'm not going to even try to fake. It took me a long time to get to Amazing Spider-Man because it came out in 2012, but I actually did not get around to watching it until I think earlier this year it was. I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, we both ended up watching it because it turns out you didn't see it yourself. So we both watched it right before this movie came out.
Probably within the last 3 months is when we actually checked out the Amazing Spider-Man first movie.
Right, starring Andrew Garfield. I just want to make sure we make that clear because I definitely saw all the Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire, and I thought the first one was on point. But to me, and it's so funny I'm bringing this up because I actually had this conversation with a coworker just the other day. We were talking about how the first Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, it was on point, it was story-driven, it was character-driven, but then it seemed like they were just trying to do too much in part 2 and 3, especially 3. There was just so much crammed in slapstick comedy, Broadway musical, dancing, and all that. It was like, what the hell is going on? Are we watching Spider-Man, or are we watching Spider-Man, a Broadway play? And then sure enough, U2's Bono and Edge, they do the damn Spider-Man thing up in New York. And I'm glad that thing shut down too. All the people that was getting killed working on that Broadway play. But I'm getting sidetracked. I was a little bit on the fence when it came to The Amazing Spider-Man. But I said, you know what? Let me go in with just a clear conscience. Let me not think about the Tobey Maguire funk there at the end, okay? And no disrespect to Tobey Maguire, he's a phenomenal actor, but I just thought, and I think any true comic book fan would agree, that part 1 of Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, it was on point, but 2 to 3, it was just kind of what the hell, you know? But I went into Amazing Spider-Man and I said, okay, let's see what happens. I saw the cast list and everything. Dennis Leary, one of my favorite actors. I don't really mess with him like that as a comedian. I am familiar with his work, but not as a comedian. It's mainly as an actor. I'm familiar with him from FX's Rescue Me, Sally Field. Just all around, Martin Sheen, all around great cast that was in that first one. It's like, man, if these names are attached to it, how could this movie be bad? How could you go wrong not to see it? And I was very impressed, very character driven, very just heavy on the story, felt very realistic that, hey, something like this could happen. And so to hear that Amazing Spider-Man 2 was coming up, it's like, okay, all right, let's see how this goes. Now, we're not going to give you guys any spoilers, but we will be referring to some key Spider-Man story arcs that will help you get an idea of what Amazing Spider-Man 2 is about, but we're also going to go in depth about how each actor did. So just go back, relax. If you're familiar with our movie reviews, you know how we do it over here. So, okay, let's begin, Tammy, by basically acknowledging how Amazing Spider-Man 2 picked up. Without giving away too many spoilers, we continue to see what all had came about with Peter Parker's parents as he continues his journey and trying to figure out what exactly happened to his parents. Why did they hit the road and everything? And that pretty much had set up the tone. We pretty much just pick up right where we left off from the events of part 1, and it's basically your typical day. If you love your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, he's swinging through the city, he's saving people left and right, he's everywhere, man. And we see a very weird looking Jamie Foxx who's got blueprints in his hand. Of course, he's playing the Electro character. I think the name was Max Dillon. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Okay, because I've always just known him as Electro. I've never looked up his civilian name or whatever. But yeah, we see Jamie Foxx as Max Dillon, aka Electro, and I definitely want to talk about race in a little bit, because you and me were talking about this right before we got ready to do this. We'll tackle that in a little bit because I think it's very important. But we see him, and Tammy, for me, I couldn't help but go, oh, fuck. So this is how we're going to get introduced to Electro. Electro is starting off as a geek character. Why does this have a Batman Forever vibe? And if you guys know Batman Forever, that's the one that had Val Kilmer step into the Batman mantle. Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. Jim Carrey was the Riddler. And home in on the Riddler for a minute, because when you're first introduced to the Riddler is somebody that is just infatuated with his work. He's a lonely person. He doesn't have a girlfriend, no kids. He lives by himself. It's just, man, when you see him, it's kind of like, man, it kind of sucks to be him because he's kind of boring or whatever. He meets one of his idols, which is Bruce Wayne, and somehow things just go a little bit south pretty much once he loses his job or whatever, and Jim Carrey, aka the Riddler, he just ends up being this nutty SOB, or creepy bastard as I'd like to say it, okay? And so you're kind of, when you see Jamie Foxx, I mean, it was almost like the directors kind of said, hey, you know what? Jamie Foxx would be great in this role. Remember how he had the fucked up toupee when he was in Ali? Okay, well, let's see if he can bring that back for this movie. That's exactly what I said to myself when I saw him. And just for the guys on YouTube, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to purposely give you guys a side-by-side image of what I'm talking about, okay? Because when I saw him, I'm like, hey, he's bringing back the Ali character. All right. And he's like, oh, Spider-Man. Oh, I'll just give this a little bit away. Oh, you saved me. Oh, you saved me. And it's kind of like, it reminded me of that scene from Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise and God, who's the other girl? Is it Cameron Diaz?
Yes.
Okay, and she's like, I swallowed your cum. Do you know what that means? It means something. It's special. It means we're going to be together for a long time. And just the way he was just having an orgasm over the fact that Spider-Man had saved him, you knew this was in some shape or form gonna set him up when he got ready to be Electro. Okay, let's talk about Jamie Foxx for a minute, because we talked about it as the end credits were rolling in theater. And I'm going to shut up in a little bit and let you talk. Jamie Foxx, to me, without a doubt, he is one of the best actors. He is one of the best black actors of our generation. I will definitely give him that nod. And anybody that wants to seriously say BS on that, you had to been growing up on him when we were growing up on him. We go as far back on him in Living Color. Okay, the Jamie Foxx show. A lot of people, they just now are discovering Jamie Foxx, but the hardcore true fans like us, we remember him from his days on those respected shows, and that's really what had put him on the map, was what he did on there. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly right.
You see the phenomenal work that he did in Ali, which we referenced earlier, starring Will Smith. Great cast right there. Think about him and Ray, okay?
My goodness, what a phenomenal job he did in Ray.
Yeah, exactly. But then you go into, hey, Jamie Foxx, Amazing Spider-Man 2, how can you go wrong? And I think you said it perfectly. You said he came off like a jobber in this movie. For me, it was just a little frustrating because I really wanted to get myself wrapped around the Electro Max Dillon character to really feel that connection and understand the transition that he made from working in Oscorp, being the maintenance guy or whatever, to the point of where he is. I just felt they really just crammed a whole bunch of stuff together, and it was kind of like, here's this badass sky blue looking guy. Looks like he probably had too much Powerade. This is one of your main villains, you know. That's just honestly my take on that.
Well, honestly, my take is I really think that they didn't tell that story well enough. It was kind of, okay, here it is, on this day he's this way, and then on this day he's now Electro, and they give you a little bit of an Easter egg on what the transition is, but I don't think they go in depth enough to, maybe not in depth, I think it's more, maybe they chose too weak of a storyline of the transition. I think that's what it is. They chose too weak of a storyline for the transition to where it's kind of like, you know, I'm not really feeling that. Especially considering, you know, what you have in the rest of the movie. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, that's the way I felt about it. And like I said, yeah, it felt like he was a jobber, you know. He did his due, and that was that.
You know what I would have preferred? And this is the writer part of me, and I haven't done any type of writings in a good minute as far as comic book stuff goes, because I don't know if many of you, our subscribers and our listeners, might know this, but I actually, for many years, I used to do my own little independent comic book, and man, I think I wrote and drew about maybe 50 issues or whatever. And one of the things that I love is a really great story and the whole character development. What has made that character the way that they are? If they're ticked, okay, well, what is it that made them tick? You know what I'm saying? And there's one part, not giving anything away here, but you hear Jamie Foxx's character, Max Dillon Electro, say, I don't know why, but I have all this anger inside of me, and it just feels like it needs to come out. And it's kind of like, okay, well, where the hell did all this anger come from? I don't really, because to try to say that it's the powers that's justifying it, I think that's a cheap cop out. See, for me, here's what would have been a better introduction to him, okay? Not to really make it be all about him, but I mean, come on, it's Jamie Foxx, okay? He's won a couple of Academy Awards, okay? Let's do this guy justice. Give the fans something they can really sink their teeth into, all right? I would have done the following. I would have had Max Dillon's character get a job with Oscorp as part of some type of a rehabilitation program. Okay, basically, I would have had him be a guy that was in jail for many years. He served his time. He got out on parole, and it's a new life and everything for him, but he still has whatever crime it was that he committed. And we could kind of do something maybe harmless. Maybe he did like a hit and run. He was under the influence. He left the scene of the crime. Cops caught up with him, and he did a few years. And the time for him, it was very hard. It definitely made him appreciate being out on the outside, and most importantly, he was trying to do everything that he could to stay that straight path and everything. And as part of this whole new process, this new life that he's trying to begin for himself, he's trying to go back and reestablish a healthy relationship with his former wife or former girlfriend, because before all this had went down, she was with his child. You know, she was going to be giving birth soon. Basically, you know, some time has passed and she's moved on. The child's moved on. They don't want to have anything to do with him. You know, that's one route you can go. If you don't want to maybe go that route, because I know some of you guys are probably going to be like, well, wait a minute, Lee. We kind of saw that element come about from one of the Spider-Man movies when it came to introducing the Sandman character. I think it was Spider-Man 3, where they did Sandman, Venom, and they just crammed all this crap in the last one or whatever. I can see that argument, but I think you guys kind of see what I'm trying to get at right here. They could basically give you that early connection of, okay, here's a guy, he's just trying to do the right thing. He's just trying to stay that right path, you know. And who can't appreciate that good story of a former convict trying to stay on that straight path?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And maybe Oscorp is some type of a way. Basically, they have this little program set up where they allow a certain amount of convicted felons or whatever to be able to get a job with them through their little program that they have set up. And, you know, we could have gone maybe the maintenance route, because the argument could be made that before he did his whole DUI or whatever, you know, he was a pretty smart guy, and, you know, but that one night he was stupid because he had one too many drinks. Okay. Or if you want to go the more savage route, you know, you could have just made him be a thug that committed a crime. He got out. He's trying to live the straight path, and he takes a job as a janitor or what have you. But then, you know, you kind of have to kind of fine tune it a little bit more, you know, but you still could have gotten to that point where it's like, look, here's your introduction to Fox's character. And you could have still done the whole, hey, Spider-Man saved him and everything. You could have still done all that. But to have that nice little bit of a backdrop,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That is something that they missed. I think what you're saying is the backdrop. I mean, it was a really short backdrop. You know,
shit, I counted no backdrop.
Well, I think we had one scene where you had a backdrop to his character. But, you know, we don't want to give a whole lot away. So, yeah, I think what you're saying is definitely that they really should have done better in telling the story. Because they really didn't. I mean, they left you to your own imagination and to assume what it would be for his character.
Exactly. Let's talk about the beautiful and the lovely Emma Stone, who returns as Gwen Stacy. I'm just now kind of hip to this young girl, and I do mean young girl, 25 years old. Off to a very good start with her career. Some of y'all that might not be familiar with her, she was in The House Bunny, Ghosts of Girlfriends Past, Zombieland. Pretty good for herself. She was in the video game Sleeping Dogs. She co-starred in Gangster Squad. So she's got a nice little resume. Definitely some stuff that'll make you want to go backtrack to her. Of course, she's playing everybody's beloved favorite comic book character, Gwen Stacy, the first true love of Peter Parker / Spider-Man. And for those of you that know your comic books and you know your comic books well, you know that at some point the Gwen Stacy character gets killed off. Does she get killed in this movie? Well, you're definitely going to have to go watch the movie to find out for yourself, okay? But that is definitely one story arc that I want to hip you guys to, because they do reference it very strongly in this sequel. So your first homework assignment when you get done with this review, if you don't have the comic book yet, I'm sure you can probably maybe find a trade paperback, but you'll want to look for The Night Gwen Stacy Died story arc, okay? It's basically chronicled in the Amazing Spider-Man issues 121 and 122. If you're trying to look for the actual comic books themselves, good luck, because those things are going to cost you a couple of $100, okay? Because these books came out originally in like 1973.
If not more.
If not more, thank you. If not more. But they came out in 1973. So good luck finding them, but I would highly recommend you just look for the trade paperback instead, because that's kind of really the platform I feel that they're using for this Spider-Man trilogy. And that's your first homework assignment. All right, now let's talk about the rest of the actors here. But well, wait a minute. Let's go back to Miss Emma Stone for a moment. Breathtaking. I couldn't help but just be fixated on her every single time she came onto the screen. She has great presence.
She does.
And that's pretty damn impressive for a young girl.
She's very impressive. In the character that she plays. Actually, for the first one, The Amazing Spider-Man, and the sequel, the continuing of that character is really good. I found that her presence just seemed to be a bit more captivating in this one than the first one, for me. Maybe it was due to the storyline. That's possible. But I was quite taken away with her character, and actually just the character of both of them together.
Right, right. Should we even reference Sally Field this go round? Aunt May returning? I mean, didn't really seem like she had that much of a role this go round as opposed to the first one. I kind of got more out of her in the first go round.
Yeah, she definitely was not as she wasn't in this one as much, I don't think. But she did have some good key points in Spider-Man 2. For me, there were a couple really, heart-tugging points that she had done. And, who doesn't? Sally Field is, if you're, in our age group, has grown up on either her TV shows or reruns or certainly many
Forrest Gump
movies that she has done.
Forrest Gump.
In the last,
couple of decades.
A couple of decades.
Yeah.
She is an amazing actor.
I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised they have not done like a Lifetime Achievement Award or something to chronicle her entire career, because when you just add up, it does add up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a Sally Field fan, you're probably like, yeah, when is her just due
That's
coming?
A good point.
You know
that's
what I'm
a really
saying?
Good point.
One thing that I noticed about, and that's the thing in the comics that I feel really wasn't really put out there like that, even in the cartoons, not even really during Tobey Maguire's run as Spider-Man, as he had his own respected Aunt May and everything. The thing I like about Sally Field as Aunt May, she really does this great job in pushing the story forward, because there are those points between Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 where Spider-Man aka Peter Parker, seems to hit a roadblock, and Aunt May, Sally Field, is there to really have that strong heart-to-heart that really gets at you, almost to the point that it could be a little bit teary-eyed, and she keeps it going. She helps it go to that next step in the story, and I like that, and I love the fact that they went with a young Aunt May, because in the comics, she's like this 90-something-year-old, white-haired old lady, and I'll never forget when they killed Aunt May. I think they've killed her twice in comic book history. I think the second time came around like late 90s, early 2000s, and it was like such a big freaking deal, because it was like, oh my God, they killed off Aunt May. And I remember there was
she's
like,
already in her 90s. She doesn't have much longer to go.
Yeah, I know, right? That's the comic book years for you guys. You could have like 20 years go by in real time, and in comic book time, it's only been like 2 years. Okay,
I see.
So that's how she was able to stay alive all this time. Let's talk about who can we go to next? I don't really think we should bring up Paul Giamatti. Minor role.
Honestly, his spots were quite minimal.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure you guys probably know by now, Paul Giamatti is Rhino, and I'll actually address that in a little bit, but there was really nothing you can sink your teeth into as far as Paul Giamatti goes, and I'm a huge Paul Giamatti fan. Let's talk about Andrew Garfield returning as Peter Parker, Spider-Man. Great guy, great actor.
Yeah. I did, kind of referencing a little bit about the ones with Tobey Maguire. I did see the first Spider-Man with, that rendition, I should say, with Tobey Maguire. And yes, that was good. But I did see bits and pieces of 2 and 3. And honestly, no, they weren't as good. So when we went to go ahead and see The Amazing Spider-Man, or watched it, I should say, not in theaters, but, on a DVD, basically, I was like, oh, well, okay. So, but I was very, very surprised at his rendition of that character. It's honestly kind of like what we said about Captain America, that character, that actor that's playing that character is honestly for our generation, and then we've seen, a couple different people play that character, but you just know when it fits. And he just has nailed that character. He's funny, he's definitely everything that you would expect a Spider-Man to be. I think the fact that they put humor in with it, that's awesome. It just gives you that bit of his character. And the fact that, they're allowing him to be sensitive. I mean, he's everything rolled up into one, and just can pull off, every emotion, and it's believable, because this is something where you can look at it and say, okay, you know what? This could really happen. This could be a real person. It's not just a comic book character.
And most importantly, it feels real.
Mm-hmm.
When you go back and you look at Tobey Maguire, it just really seems like Tobey Maguire is approaching it in a way where it's like, okay, I know the camera is gonna zoom in on me for this particular frame. I definitely need to make sure I have this certain facial expression. And I think for you hardcore Spider-Man fans, I think we all could be in agreement. Tobey Maguire made some ridiculous facial expressions throughout those Spider-Man movies. It's kind of like...
Yeah, they felt out of place.
It did, especially when he's like angry about something, and it's like, okay, it's time for Spider-Man, Peter Parker, to get serious. And, it's just like, he's like really just overkill. Whereas Andrew, it's just so damn smooth. It's just natural. It's like, hey, this could actually happen. That's how you come away, Like my most favorite stupid scene with Tobey Maguire giving a facial expression, I think it was Spider-Man maybe 3, where he shoots out the webs and he's trying to protect the train from going over the track, and he just has this stupid face. And I remember, like, so many people, they made like a GIF image of that, and they just got the zoom in of him, and he's just going, I mean, it looks like he's trying to squeeze one out, I don't mean in a sexual way either. It looks like he's trying to squeeze one. It looks like he's trying to do number 2,
Yeah, I got what you were trying to say.
Okay, good. You got it the first go around. But yeah, it looks like when you just think about it, his acting in that one, I mean, my God, it's like, man, I wish we could have got Andrew from the get-go. I never thought I'd hear myself say that, but it's like, I wish we could have got Andrew from the get-go, because now we're in a position right here where Andrew has already admitted that he doesn't want to be 40 plus still being Spider-Man. He just thinks that would be quite silly.
Yeah.
He's 30 right now. I don't know if you knew that, but I didn't. He's 30 right now. So that means when he first signed on, he was probably 26, maybe 27. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
So yeah, I mean, you're lucky if you're getting 1, maybe 2 more, out of him. Mm-hmm. I mean, the real job for the executives and creators of Spider-Man is going to be to find a replacement as good as Andrew, and that's going to be pretty tough.
It is going to be pretty tough. I mean, let's hope we don't have to deal with that at least for a couple of more years, because newsflash, people, the way things are looking right now, definitely, as you all would imagine, we are going to be getting another Spider-Man movie. It's going to be coming out 2 years from now, so 2016. And then Sony, Marvel, they've already given a green light to a 4th Spider-Man. Now, Andrew, he recently revealed in an interview as early as this week, maybe late last week, he said that he's only signed up to do 3. He's entertaining the idea of maybe coming back for a 4th. But let me pull up a very interesting quote right here, and I want to get your take on this. And if you don't know, I'll definitely update you and those that may not know about this story arc that I'm getting ready to reference here. But on April 28th, Andrew confirmed that he would like to see Peter Parker pass the torch to Miles Morales in a future sequel. Direct quote, Miles Morales was a huge moment in this character's comic book life, and I do believe that we can do that. It's something I'm really interested in figuring out, an eloquent way of coexisting or passing on the torch. I don't have an answer, but I think it's actually a really important move. I think it's a really beautiful and important move. I want it to feel like a circle. I want the two ends to join somehow. I don't know what that means yet. I don't know what that means in terms of the quantity of Spider Man movies I do. But I know I don't particularly want to be a 40-year-old Spider Man. Laugh out loud. I do know that the time is fleeting. Of course, this fuels the rumors that Peter Parker will be killed off in the next film. That's one rumor I don't really see that happening. Okay, now for those of you that's kind of like, who the hell is Miles Morales? Well, you really got to know your comic books right here, folks. It looks like Miles Morales is basically a person of black and Latin descent who is just so infatuated with the Spider-Man character that when he gets killed off, he basically somehow comes across the powers of Spider-Man. That's really the best way I can kind of come up with it. And there was just so much controversy that was going on with this because him being a teenager and of black Hispanic descent, a lot of people, they just kind of felt like this was just Marvel's cheap attempt at trying to get publicity. But see, when you've been growing up on the comic books as long as I have, you remember that actually the very first time that we had somebody in a Spider-Man costume that wasn't named Peter Parker, you had to go way back to Spider-Man 2099, which had came out years and years back. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the series was first published like around, I want to say like the late 90s. Might have been the mid to late 90s or something to that effect. And basically it was a Hispanic Spider-Man. And I'm surprised people did not like blaze the hell out of Marvel Comics for that. It shows you what people are paying attention to and what they're not paying attention to. Because if they would have done their homework, they would have realized, hey, Marvel Comics has tried to go that race route. They've tried to flip it for quite a long time. And this had happened way before we got introduced to the Ultimate Marvel Universe, where instead of having a white Nick Fury, we have a black Nick Fury. Okay?
That's true.
Okay?
That's true.
So, those of you that aren't familiar with Spider-Man 2099, I would suggest you pick that up. It pretty much follows in the same footsteps of how Peter Parker got bitten, but it's just happening like in the future. And basically, it's fast cars, holograms, pretty much like maybe about 3/4 of what we saw in The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Like, yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like.
You know what I'm saying? But let's stay on race for a little bit, okay? Jamie Foxx as Max Dillon / Electro. You know your comics and you know it well. You know Electro is actually Caucasian. This is something that we've just been continuing to see in comic books over the years. I mean, let's just run off the list real quick off the top of our heads right here, okay? So, as far as the comic book characters, Jamie Foxx, Electro, black, comic books, white. And I haven't read comic books in a while, so maybe Electro is now black, and that's what they were trying to reflect in the movies. But when I was growing up, 80s, 90s, Electro was a white guy, okay? But in the movie, he's portrayed by a black man. Let's go to Superman, Man of Steel. Perry White has been white for the longest. Lawrence Fishburne comes in, he's black, okay? Let's go with Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch of the Fantastic Four. For the two sequels, it was Chris Evans. In the comic books, it was always portrayed by a white person. Now we're getting confirmation that with this new Human Torch reboot, it's going to be portrayed by a black man. Okay, hang on. I got a couple of more for you. Originally, Will Smith was supposed to be Superman and or Captain America, both roles that he shot down, because as far as he's concerned, those are just two characters that are so iconic, you don't mess with them, period.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Todd McFarlane's Spawn movie that had co-starred Martin Sheen, that came out back in the 90s. There was Al Simmons, aka Spawn's best friend. I think his name was Terry. Black guy. You see the actual live movie is portrayed by a white man. I want to say it was portrayed by D.B. Sweeney. Hope I have that name right.
I know who that is.
Okay. But you just think about it, and we can go on and on. I mean, we could do like 30 minutes of this, but you see the point that I'm making. We've seen these different changes made from comics to the live adaptation, to the point that you brought up a very interesting question when we were seeing the trailers. I think you said something about, hey, I thought Amy was...
Annie.
Annie. Yeah, we saw the trailer for Annie, and bear in mind, this movie isn't supposed to come out until Christmas this year. And that's one that stars Jamie Foxx. So it all is related, folks. We're not going off on a rant here. But you see the trailer for Annie, and you're like, wait a minute, Annie in the Broadways, she is always white. What the hell? Why is
movie.
Now in the movie it's and in the movie exactly. Now they're going the black route. So what's your take?
It honestly is basically, for me, I guess my take is the fact that they're actually trying to kind of match up with the changing of the ethnic background of the United States. Because, whether we like, whatever's going on at this point, you're having more minorities, whether it be black, Hispanic, what have you, that are actually, living in what we actually call this vast, United States, that I think they're trying to give the moviegoers something for everybody. And I think that's what they're trying to do in the new movies that are coming out and things like that. And it's not about, for me, it's not about race. It's just what I grew up on. And what I was saying as far as the Annie, just, a quick excerpt, is I grew up on the 1980s Annie. And 1980s Annie was white, and so was Daddy Warbucks. But it's definitely a different change. And you know what? For some of the kids that are probably going to be going to see it, and some of the adults that are probably going to be see it because of Jamie Foxx, will probably identify with that as well. Honestly, I just think it's the changing of ethnicity. And I think that's exactly what you're getting in a lot of these upcoming movies that are coming out. I mean, that's just my take.
I want to put a unique spin on this because for me, when I just think about all the movies that I just named, with the exception of Captain America, Winter Soldier, Falcon was black in that movie just as he was in the comic books. All right? They got that right. They didn't change that for nothing. Okay? I'm led to the impression that for a majority of these movies that are coming out, I just have this impression that they're trying to make sure that they fill a certain quota for every single respected demographics as far as a target audience that they want to attract. Because think about it, if you just have a movie just featuring an all-white cast, what is there for that African American audience? What is there for that Japanese audience? What's there for that Latin audience? What's there for that female? What's there for that male? What's there for the adult? What's there for the kid? I think it comes down to just the demographics.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, that's the honest vibe
and that's
that
kind
I'm
of
getting.
what I was saying as far as the target audience. You gotta have diversity, because at this point, our minority and the different ethnicities that we have in this country now, you gotta have something for everybody, because you have a target audience, and if you're not hitting that target audience, then honestly, that's going to be, grant you're going to have some people that are going to see a comic book movie because of the comic book love that they have. But then you're going to have some people that are just going to see it due to the fact that, oh, wow, look at this, look at that. This person is now so on and so forth. Let me see, let me go and support. And I totally agree. I think it's the demographic change, and they're trying to change with it, and they're trying to meet that target audience that you were talking about.
So with regards to Jamie Foxx stepping into a role that for many years was known to be of white descent, of Caucasian descent, should fans not be all bent out of shape?
No. Well, I guess that depends on how hardcore of a fan you are of that particular comic and the characters. But, times are changing. And unfortunately, you got to change with them. And it's not anymore that it's the color of their skin to why they get the job. It's the portrayal of whatever character and the best person to do that. If they can pull it off and have that best person, not necessarily them being of this race or that race.
So what would you say if Will Smith's son became the next Spider-Man a couple of years down the road? Would that upset you? Would you cry foul?
No. If he could give me the same of what we had with this Peter Parker with Andrew
Garfield. Yeah.
Garfield. Mm-hmm. If he could give me that, I don't care about the color of his skin. Honestly, for me, I don't. If he can give me the same thing, that I want the best actor for the spot. Like I was just saying, I mean, it might sound a little bit off because I just ended up saying, about the Annie thing, but will it deter me from seeing it? Probably not, because I do like Jamie Foxx. So, is it different? Yes. Does it take a little bit of getting used to? Yes. But I think the best actor would be better, the one you go with.
It just makes you wonder, though. It makes you wonder, but I don't have a problem with the race myself. I'm the same way. As long as they are able to do that character justice, nothing else matters. As long as you don't make that much dramatic changes to the main characters. You know what I'm saying? You can retell their origin all you want, but try to stay as close to the character in the comics as much as you can. Useless trivia for you guys. I don't know if you knew this, Tammy, but originally for the Matrix trilogy, it wasn't supposed to be Keanu Reeves. It was supposed to be Will Smith, but he was busy.
Wow.
Really makes you wonder.
That might have been a whole different movie.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder. All right, let's get back to Spider-Man here. All right, so, one thing that I liked big time about this was how they planted seeds for the next Spider-Man movie. And as I said to you guys, I kind of give you guys a nice little bit of a subtle touch and a reference as far as the night that Gwen Stacy died. You want to check out that story arc. And then another thing that I want you guys to peep out is the very first appearance of the Sinister Six. Good luck finding this comic book because this one came out in 1964 in the Amazing Spider-Man Annual 1. And basically the original Sinister Six had consisted of Electro, Kraven the Hunter, Mysterio, Sandman, Vulture, Dr. Octopus. Now, I will give you one little bit of a reference right now. There are some little Easter eggs, if you will. You have to really have a keen eye and paying attention when you're watching this movie that references Sinister Six. And pretty much by the time this movie ends, you're like, okay, so it looks like they're setting up Sinister Six. And we actually had just heard that there will be a Sinister Six movie in the works. And there's also going to be a Venom movie in the works. And that supposedly Spider-Man, whoever the actor may be for those two respective films, is supposed to be making a cameo. So okay. There's your homework assignments. You guys got some stuff to do with regards to all things Spider-Man. Support your local comic book shop definitely, or head online to Mile High Comics or wherever else you can try to get a hold of those graphic novels. Check it out though. But overall, with regards to Spider-Man, contrary to what the Washington Post had said, contrary to what maybe Arch Campbell might say, and fuck Arch Campbell, he don't know comic book movies if it bit him on the ass. I thought this movie was on point. I enjoyed the pace of the storylines. I enjoyed the continued character development of Peter Parker. I love the introduction of Electro, even though it could have used a little bit of work. I'm still kind of a little bit. Out of a scale of 1 to 10, I would have to say maybe a 6.5, 7 for the introduction of Electro. I like the subtle touch that they did with Paul Giamatti as Rhino. I have a feeling we'll know more about him in the next future movies that's to come. But overall, I thought they did a really good job. Now, for those of you that want me to say, well, compare it to the first one. I don't like doing that, but if you're going to ask me which one was better, I've got to give the edge to the first one because it was more story oriented and it wasn't so caught up on the action. Because, I mean, we saw this in IMAX format, and for me, it was kind of like a little bit of storyline. Ooh, beautiful graphics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the graphics were visually stunning, especially in IMAX. It was kind of like, whoa. But as far as comparisons, you're right on the money as far as 1 and 2. For me, the best part about Spider-Man 2, if you're somebody who loves graphics, you're gonna just go through the moon on this one. For some of the little, seeds that they planted and the different ways that they went through the story, I did like that very much. And then just the continuing of that character and the way that it was portrayed. Honestly, for me, as a whole, I'd give it a strong 7 or 8.
If they could have just fine-tuned Jamie Foxx's character, really, that's my only gripe. If they could have maybe sold me a little bit more on the Jamie Foxx's character. One major oversight that we really didn't talk about. What about the cat that had played Harry Osborn? His name had slipped my mind. Harry Osborn, Green Goblin. I thought that his portrayal, as opposed to James Franco's, I don't know, man. It's a toss-up. Because I like Franco.
I don't know very much as far as the comparison of the two. I think, it was nice, as far as the portrayal of that particular character. For me, as far as the comparison, because I really, can't compare.
And we're talking about Dane DeHaan, by the way, who had portrayed Harry Osborn in the new Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, I kind of honestly felt, in the beginning, he felt just a smidgen out of his element, but he really, for me, grew into the character nicely.
Did a good job as far as capturing that friendly relationship that Harry Osborn and Peter Parker had in the comics. It was such a really deep friendship that they had until Harry learns that Spider-Man had killed his father. Now, I'm not giving anything away right here, but they actually didn't go in that route in this movie this go round. It actually went in a completely different path. I really can't say that much more about Dane, unfortunately. I wish I could say a lot more. 28 years old. You probably best know him for being involved in the HBO series In Treatment. He was also in 2012's Chronicle, last year's Kill Your Darlings. He's got a nice little decent filmography history. I mean, he's pretty much been going at it since like right before 2008. So I must admit though, with this cast that they did, it definitely has me like, for some of these younger ones that I'm not really familiar with, it definitely has me wanting to backtrack and check out some more of their stuff. See what they were doing before they did Spider-Man and everything. But yeah, I would definitely have to match you on that rating for Spider-Man. So what are your thoughts as far as how well Spider-Man 2 will do in the box office? Because one thing that we have to remember is when Sony's original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire had opened domestically, it had pulled in $114.8 million 3 days after its first outing back in 2002, as Spider-Man 3 had grossed $151 million in its opening weekend 2007. Now you follow that up 2 years ago, Amazing Spider-Man grossed more than $750 million worldwide as Sony revamped the franchise with Andrew and Emma as the love interest and everything. That film opened midweek prior to the 4th of July weekend, took in $137 million in the first 6 days over the U.S. Now, Fox's second weekend of The Other Woman should be leading the rest of the pack after taking in $33 million in its first week. Right now, Friday forecast showed a 45% decline for that comedy to be between 13 and 14 billion this weekend. So, I mean, it's kind of off to a good start here.
Off to a really good start, considering those numbers were actually from this morning. So actually, you still have another day and a half to go.
Yeah.
So I have a strong feeling that it's honestly going to surpass it. If match it or surpass it.
I don't think it's going to surpass it, because that first one was just, I think the first one had a lot more people intrigued. And okay, it's been a couple of years. We're past Tobey Maguire. Let's see how they do this one.
Good point.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's why the first one was able to pull in so much. I could be wrong, but I'm calling it for what it is right now. I don't think the second one is going to do as good as the last Amazing Spider-Man, but I can't wait to see how they're going to be able to do all these upcoming projects. Again, 2016, we're going to be seeing Amazing Spider-Man 3, and then 2 years after that, 2018, we'll be seeing Amazing Spider-Man 4, and somewhere between 3 and 4 is going to be the spinoff for Venom and the spinoff for the Sinister Six. I can't stress this enough for you guys. I want to give you all a heads up right now, save you all the trouble. As far as Easter eggs go, as the credits are rolling, the end credits, you're going to be disappointed. For some weird reason, there was an X-Men reference, and it did not feel like it was anything related to Spider-Man. I just saw it as Marvel's way of saying, hey, don't forget we got X-Men coming up next month. That's basically how I perceived it. Nothing to do with Spider-Man. And I think it kind of sucks, because if you're a Spider-Man fan, you know that he's had past affiliation with X-Men and the Fantastic Four, to the point that Xavier, in the comic books over the years, he's always extended that olive branch to him and said, look, anytime you want, you're more than welcome to be a guest here at the X-Men's mansion. And same thing with Fantastic Four. He's considered to be a honorarium member, if you will, unofficially. But yeah, as far as Easter eggs go for Spider-Man, really, there's just a reference for Sinister Six, and this is actually throughout the film, and that's pretty much it. So as soon as you see the little X-Men thing pop up, I would suggest you just roll out. You're going to be disappointed otherwise. I definitely was disappointed, but I tell you what, to come home and see that one of my favorite wrestlers had hooked me up with that photograph, hey, I'm good as far as future Easter eggs go. Oh, and there is a Stan Lee cameo. I will let you guys know that right now. Stan Lee. True story, by the way, and we're going to wrap this up on this note. I couldn't help but say to myself, I wonder if YouTube has a video of every single cameo that Stan Lee has made over the years in the Marvel movies. And I hopped on YouTube, and wouldn't you know it, folks, there is a video. Somebody was nice enough to do all the compilations. They definitely need to add this new one from Amazing Spider-Man 2. But would you believe it racked up like about maybe 8 minutes worth of time? It's like, how the hell did you get 8 minutes worth of cameo? He didn't really say or do that much. So
yeah, but you also have to realize that all the Marvel movies that have come out, that could easily be 8 minutes.
It could be. But yeah, folks, definitely this movie gets a pass from us, so check it out when you get a chance.
Hey, what did you think of The Amazing Spider-Man 2? Did you see it this weekend? Let us know. You can hit us up on Twitter at the RCWR Show, Facebook at Infinity One Productions. Definitely, you can find us on YouTube, as what we just discussed here will be available on YouTube, also on Spreaker, SoundCloud. So check it out for those respective platforms, and let us know what you had thought about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And we'll definitely interact with you all and follow up on you all's feedback on a future episode of the RCWR Show. And for all the very latest in wrestling, entertainment news, headlines, interviews, reviews, and beyond, Be kind. Check us out on the downloads. We have episodes available on iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, coming soon to iHeartRadio. Just do a Bing or Google search using the keywords The RCWR Show. For the one and only lovely Miss Tammy, I'm the one and only Black Avenger, aka the Black Azrael Lee Sanders, wishing all y'all to be safe and be kind to one another. See you next go round. Everybody, take care.